right. Are we able to see it now?
There it is.
All right, so flavored tobacco is specifically what I'm going to be talking about with everyone here more today. And I'm just talking about how it is a social justice issue. So this is a presentation on vaping and flavors, COVID-19, and all the health inequities that we are seeing associated with tobacco use. And it is still a problem here in Minnesota, right here in Mankato, in our community as well. And so our vision at the American Lung Association is a world free of lung disease. And we have a saying or a motto that goes, if you can't breathe, nothing else matters. And again, how timely is that with everything that is happening right now in our world and nation. We know that tobacco is still the #1 preventable cause of disease and death, but together we can change that. Together, by you being here, we can change that by just being educated and learning more, also by taking action. And so I'm going to go through some education, some information for all of you, and then if you are if you kind of get that spark to take action, I'm here and happy to help, and would be excited to work with you, whether it's presenting with your group, with your audience. You know, we can modify a presentation to fit the people that you work with, to modify their needs, or take action in other ways as well. And I want to note too that when I'm talking about tobacco, I'm talking about commercial tobacco that we see in our retailers, that we see in vape shops, in gas stations. We're not talking about sacred tobacco that the American Indian population uses. I always want to add that in just as a information side note as well. And so we know that tobacco is still harming the health and pocketbooks of all Minnesotans. Cigarettes kill 6,300 Minnesotans each year, and the cost to Minnesota is over $7 billion. And that figure is made up of both healthcare costs and loss, if you look at businesses and employers who have employees who are tobacco users, there's costs associated with that of like lost productivity, healthcare costs, insurance, those sorts of things. So that does have a cost to our state and to ourselves, even all of us, those of us that are not tobacco users. So it is a relevant topic for all of us. And also want to point out that currently, or as of 2019, last surveyed, 11% of Minnesota 8th graders are now vaping, which that is on the rise. And when you think of that young age as well, that is alarming, very, very alarming. And so I'm going to talk more about how and why that is happening as well. And we also know that the tobacco industry, they disproportionately market their products to specific populations, which then harms those populations as well. So the tobacco industry has a long history of targeting African American communities, women, LGBTQ, and youth, and that they market these products specifically to each one of these types of populations. And so if you look at the graph here, you can see that 14% of white people are tobacco users, whereas if you look at the American Indian population, depending on the surveying and how questions are answered, it's upwards of either 38% or 59%, whereas also the African American population is 19.3 and Hispanics at 15.7. So that's more than what we're seeing amongst the white population as well. And then within those pockets of those racial and ethnicity pieces of information, we can see different pockets of that, whether it's related to their education level, income level, all of those sorts of things. And then also, let's not forget about those who are part of the mental health and chemical use disorder population as well. They are also heavily targeted by the tobacco industry in various ways. And we know that people who are, you know, maybe you're a person who's working through alcoholism or has some sort of mental health illness, those that are also tobacco users are more likely to die or become ill from their tobacco illness more so than from that substance that they're addicted to or their mental health issue. And so the tobacco industry certainly takes advantage of those vulnerable populations as well.
Kelly, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure, absolutely.
I just look at the numbers with American Indians. Does that have, or Native Americans, does that have anything to do? I'm assuming there's no taxes on reservations on cigarettes. Is that right? So it's a lot cheaper
Yeah.
for them to smoke also.
Yep. And so the tobacco industry knows that as well, and so then they
Okay.
use that too. To, I
Okay.
mean, it's not fully related to. I mean, it's that's not the 100% sole reason, but that
Great.
does contribute
Okay.
to that because they are then marketed to in a different way as
Okay.
well. Um, so yes, good question. And one of the things, one of the ways that we know that the tobacco industry disproportionately harms these communities, specifically the LGBT and the African American, is through menthol. And so, you know, any of you that reported that you were at one time or currently a tobacco user, I'm willing to bet you may have had experience with menthol cigarettes, or maybe they're even what you started your tobacco use on. And that's because they are menthol helps reduce the harshness of the cigarette. It creates a cooling effect where otherwise it would maybe stop someone from smoking again. But although it creates this this cooling effect, it makes it more appealing potentially for a person to continue and try smoking again. And it suppresses that caffeine, and it just makes smoking more tolerable for a person. And so the tobacco industry obviously knows this, and then they continue to market menthol specifically to different populations. And one of the populations is the African Americans. The population here, I'm going to try to move over this. There we go. So we can see just how different it looks. So um, when people are using menthol cigarettes, they are increasing their smoking initiation, and then they progress to regular smoking that much sooner. They also have an increased nicotine dependence, and then which essentially is a stronger addiction to these products. And then they also have reduced successes in quitting smoking. So as John, as you said, you attempted quitting smoking 20 times, or you know how many ever times you did. That's not uncommon. That's very common for a person to continue many times to try to quit because these products are so addictive. And then when you add menthol into it as well, it just continues to make it that much more of an addictive product too. And you can see here on the graph on the left of the screen that nearly 90% of all African American smokers use menthol cigarettes. So not only did the tobacco industry create that statistic, essentially they also know that, and then they dive deeper into it by continuing to market their products to that population. And they've been marketed and targeted with menthol cigarette advertising, and that's, you know, predominantly in Black neighborhoods, in Black publications, in different retailers. There's so many different ways that the tobacco industry knows exactly what they're doing. They spend millions and billions of dollars on what they're doing, and so they can get into those specific pieces of media, forms of media to target these populations. And so you can see here just from like a snapshot of different tobacco ads. You know, Newport is a known tobacco brand that targets the African American population. And so you can see that by using Black people in their advertising. And then they also are, if you look at the Cool brand, they are supporting Black History Month and saying that they're on the side of Black people to help them. And then if you look also, you know, how these advertisements are changing over time, they are adjusting their marketing and advertisement with images as they're changing and ever evolving. And then we also know that the tobacco industry targets the LGBT community. And so how they do that is they provide sampling of products at certain LGBT events. They sponsor them. So they're at these events handing out free vaping products, cigarettes to individuals who are attending these, which then furthers that addiction. And so those that are the LGBT community, those that are 18 to 24, are nearly 2 times as likely to smoke as their straight peers. And you can see on that cigarette graphic on the left-hand side, 14 36.9% of straight adults use cigarettes, whereas 35.5% of transgender adults use cigarettes and 20.6% of LGBT adults use cigarettes. And so, again, just like with African Americans, the tobacco industry puts publications they specifically market to these different demographics as well. And you can see here, right, in the tobacco industry documents, just how they've examined how they're doing. You know, they're a business. They are marketing their products to people. So that you can see here, it says that Philip Morris has led the competition in gay and lesbian market, first with advertising and second with participating/sponsoring events. Having successfully negotiated some of their first contracts for sponsorship of gay and lesbian events in 1997, B&H has established itself as the tobacco industry company of choice for the market. So different pockets of the tobacco industry establish themselves and make themselves known as the certain demographic brand. Like I was saying, like Cool, like Newport, and different brands are also kind of known for targeting the LGBT community as well. Those that are living in low income poverty range are also disproportionately targeted by the tobacco industry. And that is also an alarming statistic as well, because when you are living at the poverty level, your finances are already spread thin. And if you look at this graph here, you can see how much money is spent each month on tobacco products for those that are at the poverty level or below. So 27% of their income is spent on tobacco products, with the remaining 73% spent on food, shelter, and then their living expenses. And that, again, relates to the mental health aspect that I spoke about as well. And, you know, when they're at that level of poverty and then they're putting money towards this addictive product, it continues this cycle of less opportunity. And so if we can help these people stop using these products or stop them from starting, that can help that population along the way as well. And again, to go back to the indigenous populations, the tobacco companies have exploited those that are in indigenous communities. They exploit the fact that smoke-free laws that are put in place by state or federal authority don't have the same. They aren't the same in tribal lands, and so that's how one of the ways that these populations are also more heavily targeted by the tobacco industry and therefore have higher rates of tobacco use. And we also know that youth are heavily marketed to by the tobacco industry. And just like, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, a study came out showing the population density of tobacco retailers from walking distance from a school. And so you can see here on the left that 63% of schools in 30 cities are within 1,000 feet of a tobacco retailer. And while that sounds alarming, it certainly is an alarming number. But if you think about in Mankato, that is the case. If you put yourself in Mankato West High School, there's 3 retailers that a student could walk to get tobacco products. Quick Trip across the street, a vape shop in the corner, and then Cub Food across the other street. And so we are seeing that right here in our own backyard. And we also have found, the study also showed that there are 31 times more tobacco retailers than there are McDonald's. So tobacco retailers are everywhere. And it's our job to know where they are, know what the products are selling. And if we can, our next big push, our big effort is to have them stop selling flavored products, these products that are so addictive and marketed to our young people. And we also can see that the smoking rates have stalled amongst adults. The quitting smoking rates have stalled, while the vaping rates have increased significantly. So I'm not like a real competitive person, like athletically. I have no athletic skills, but I am a little bit competitive in the sense that it's frustrating that we have always been leading the nation in being having less tobacco users than the United States up until 2018. Now we're just 0.1% different from the United States as far as the adult smoking rates have changed. However, when we look at e-cigarette usage, that graph on the right-hand side, when we look at e-cigarette usage, we can see just how much of an increase has happened in the last from 2014 to 2018. And again, we'll be seeing more information as more studies are coming out. But you can see a significant rise in that population as well, which when you look at that number as well, of those 18 to 24-year-olds, those adults that are young adults that are starting using these vaping products, their usage of them contradicts what the vaping industry promotes. So the vaping industry promotes that their products are meant to help people stop smoking cigarettes. That's what they claim for themselves. However, that study where it shows a change from 12.8% to 21.9%, those that were e-cigarette users were then surveyed, and 3/4 of them stated that they had never used they had never used cigarettes prior to their e-cigarette use. And so that is contradictory of the vaping industry saying we make these products to help people quit, when we know these products are what is initiating nicotine dependence. And then also here in Minnesota, we can see just how significant of a rise we are experiencing with vaping amongst our youth. So from 2016 to 2019, eighth graders had a 95% increase of tobacco products, going from 5.7% to 11%. And then when you jump up to 11th grade, it's up to 26.4%. So that is an alarming number when you think about, the students in your life, wondering, are they using vaping products? Are their friends? Chances are, if you have a young person in your life, they know somebody who's using them if they haven't even tried them themselves. And the reason for trying them, go back here, maybe, is because of all of the products, the flavors that are available on the market. We know that there are over 15,000 flavors, and 4 out of 5 kids who started using tobacco products started with a flavored product. And right here in Minnesota, 67% of them, of Minnesota high school students that use tobacco, are using flavored products. And so the names of these products are alarming too. Cotton candy, if there's probably products with unicorn, with rainbow in the name. They use our kids' favorite candies like Sour Patch Kids, Starburst, all of these different fruity flavored candies. There's like a Cool Whip flavor, Cool Whip flavored type of vape juice. There's apple juice flavored. There's all of these flavors that appeal to our young people. So when they see them, they think, oh, well, they can't be that bad. They're just a flavor. But we know that they are heavily marketing these products to young people, and they have a high concentration of nicotine in these e-cigarette juices and vaping products as well. And as it relates to COVID-19, it was recently found too that teens and young adults who vaped are 5 times more likely to get COVID-19, and those who smoked conventional cigarettes are 7 times more likely. So we know tobacco use itself is a known risk factor for many respiratory infections, and it increases the severity of respiratory diseases. But then too, when we're dealing with a pandemic that is respiratory, those that are using these products are not only more likely to get them, but more likely to have severe symptoms from those that are non-smokers. So if there's ever a time where it's been important to make quit attempts for these products, this would be now. If there's ever a time to stop young people from starting using these products, it would be now. While we're here in this pandemic, while we are facing this worldwide health issue. And then the, I was going to show a video, but I won't for interest of time and questions afterwards, but I can send out some of the videos that I was going to share too. But the vaping industry, they are well aware of this as well. And so again, doing their part to appear to be the good guys, they have created hand sanitizer, so their products, it could be confusing to somebody just looking at them. Is this hand sanitizer or is this e-cigarette juice? And so this is a vaping company who sells e-cigarette or e-liquids, e-juices, as they're called, vaping devices. They're also selling COVID-19 supplies to help protect their users from this disease or from the pandemic as well. And so we also know that e-cigarettes and mental health go hand in hand, and especially during these times, kids are maybe self-medicating, but we know that nicotine does not help with anxiety or depression. It doesn't help with stress levels. In fact, it increases all of those, and it also adds to that feeling of immediate gratification and satisfaction when they're having a craving, but we don't know all of the long-term effects yet, but we have seen, so up to this point, that there are some detrimental effects of using these products, including increased anxiety, increased depression and stress. And then when they're not able to obtain a vaping product, then they have increased irritation and lack of focus. And so if you can imagine, I, as an adult that's not addicted to nicotine, I'm having a hard time these days focusing and concentrating and, not feeling like my head is thinking about a million different things to respond to. So if you can imagine a young person in these times and then put nicotine addiction on top of it, that certainly isn't helping with their ability to learn, to remember information, and to just be at a lower stress level. And then there's also we've heard about this in the news, EVALI is what it's called, e-cigarette or vaping use associated lung injury. And so we've seen students be hospitalized from this. We've seen people have death related to this. And then we also know that when people are extremely addicted to this high concentration of nicotine, they're having chills and vomiting, dizziness, diarrhea, seizures, even rapid heartbeat and chest pain because of these vaping products. And so not only is it a racial and health inequity issue, not only is it relevant to COVID-19, it's also relevant to just keeping our youth safe, short term from these products, let alone the long term addiction that could arise from addiction to these. And so if you were to guess, you can shout out answers or type them in the chat. What do you estimate is the nicotine equivalent in one Juul pod? And the Juul pod, if you can see here, I don't have one with me, but it's the size of my thumb now. What would you guess is the amount of nicotine in one Juul pod? Get some answers coming here. Hey. So we're getting some answers. Some are showing up in the whole group and some are just me. Yep. So one Juul pod is equivalent to 1 pack of cigarettes, which that is also very alarming when you think of smoking cigarettes and you're, maybe a student in school. You cannot smoke a cigarette in school without being caught. You can smell it, you can see it, but these Juul products have a very minimal cloud. They have very minimal smell. And so a student could potentially be vaping 1 Juul pod a day, therefore getting as much nicotine as 1 pack of cigarettes in one day. And so that is something to know as we move forward and learn more about this as well. Let's see if my slide will move here. And so one of the solutions to this, as I talked about before, is to ban the sale of flavored and vaping products. And that some action has been done on that at the federal level, but there are gigantic loopholes with that action and many workarounds that the tobacco industry is finding to still be able to make flavored products, to market them to young people. And another thing that we are seeing with these emerging products is the price of these. And so here on this screen, I have Puff Bar. Puff Bar is the new Juul. So Juul is what really skyrocketed what we saw, a rise in these vaping products. And then they had many restrictions put upon them. And then Puff Bar is a new company that emerged, and they have really taken over the market. And something that is alarming about this product is the price that these products can be obtained at. Some of them are as low as $9.95. So with the $10 bill, a student could, or a young person could get these products. And there's banana ice flavor. What is that? I don't know. Banana and mint doesn't sound good, but apparently I'm sure it has a smell and a flavor that's appealing to young people. And it's been found too that lawmakers found that Puff Bar used the pandemic to market to their teens. So kind of played on, working from home, schooling from home. Are you needing a break from your parents? Are they stressing you out? Are your parents home? We're all in the same space together. That these products are now being marketed to youth as a way to help them relieve stress from parents. So this isn't meant to be all doom and gloom. There is a lot that we can do about this as well. The first thing that we can do is to educate yourself and to keep learning and stay educated on this topic, to ask questions, to not only ask, like myself in this role, a tobacco expert, questions, but also ask the young people in your life, ask them questions about maybe what they're seeing at school. And if you're with an organization that serves a population that would find value in information that I shared today, I'm more than happy to talk to you and present to your group as well, especially when we're in this virtual time of not maybe knowing what exactly to meet about or what projects to work on or that sort of thing. I would be happy to come speak with your group and share more information. And if it's a specific population, I can certainly modify that to address the population that you work with, to go more in depth on this as well. Another thing we can do is we don't have to panic. We can organize. We can work together to help address this. So just like Tobacco 21 passed throughout the state and in the city of Mankato, we can also be advocates for flavors, for helping stop the sale of flavors in our community, whether that's calling up our local city council members and mayor, whether it's calling our state representatives, whether it's sending a letter of support. It doesn't need to be loud and out there. It can be subtle, it can be private, it can be on your own time. And so if you're interested in any advocacy efforts, whether it's locally or statewide, I would be happy to connect with you as well. And whether it's we work on a project together or if I just get you contact information and help you write a letter of support, there's lots of opportunities for that too. And we know that there are many communities throughout the state of Minnesota that have banned banned flavored products, including menthol. And so that's one key thing, especially with speaking about the racial and health inequities, is we want to always have menthol products in the conversation because we know that they are such a contribution to people starting using these products. And another thing that we can do is we can vote. Our votes matter. Now more than ever too, you would think that a public health issue shouldn't become a political issue, but that's not the case, and we're seeing that. And so your vote matters. And if you need information about where to register to vote for mail-in and all this COVID regulations and things that are changing, I can certainly help with that as well if you have more questions. And then also I just want to talk about how we have Quit Partner. It is Minnesota's new quit plan. It's a free resource for people who want to quit vaping, smoking, and chewing. And then we also have something called My Life, My Quit. That is for youth. That is for young people to support them in ways that relate to them. Texting is a great way to contact a person that's under 18 versus maybe email that's more likely to reach an adult. So there's certainly different opportunities and resources for helping people quit smoking as well. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, or if like right now, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to address them. And I can send out a survey if when I spoke about like being involved or just wanting to learn more or have a presentation with your organization, I can send that out. If there's follow-up notes from this meeting, I can share that as well. So I feel like I talked quickly, but I wanted to stay in our time frame here. So if anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer, or you can send them to me after today.
Anybody have a question that'd be good for the club to hear an answer to? You have time for 1 or 2 questions if you want to ask a question.
Kelly, this is Mike. I've got a question. So I was wondering, you mentioned the World Health Organization in one of your stats there. I'm wondering if, because those organizations are becoming a bit under attack during the COVID-19, I'm wondering if there has been any, blowback as far as the stats that they provide on tobacco use.
Right. So right now we haven't, no, we haven't seen any sort of contradiction on what they're sharing as far as vaping statistics and information related to that. That's a good question. And I will find out more if there are new emerging things. But we know too, there's just kind of a mix of information between the FDA, the CDC, and the WHO. It's a lot of confusion right now for all of us.
So Kelly, could you tell me why you think that we've been so slow to make the link between tobacco use and vaping use in terms of health consequences?
That's a good question. I don't think that it's been, I mean, we know the health consequences of these products of vaping and tobacco use. I think it's, we're fighting a big industry. The tobacco industry has, a much larger budget than public health does to promote their products and to have people share their products. And so that is one issue. With tobacco, we know, with cigarettes, we know the long-term health effects because they've been on the market longer. And whereas with vaping, they're ever evolving, they're always changing. And also with the vaping juice, sometimes it could be THC oil, which is a oil from a marijuana plant that could also be in these products. And so there's lots more variations on how these products can be used too. So there's just more continuing research that needs to be done to learn more. So I think short answers is we have answers for tobacco, for cigarettes, but as far as vaping, we're continuing to learn more, and it's ever evolving, and it's a monster. It's always changing.
All right. Thank you, Kelly, very much. Very informational, very good information for us, and some good information on what we can do to help the whole situation. And hopefully we can take the time to help promote the banning of these substances and the ability of the tobacco companies to continue to make the population sick. So I'll get off my soapbox too. I don't do it for a living, Kelly does, but thank you, Kelly, for the information today. I want to thank Kelly for being here today. Also, thank you to our friends from Albert Lee for joining us today. Thank you, Lois, Daryl, Robert, Dave, and Dwight for joining us today. Also want to remind everyone, Saturday, the 19th, 9 a.m. down at the warehouse, Kiwanis Holiday Lights has some fun spooling and so forth, and getting ready for another great Kiwanis Holiday Lights season. And I want to say happy birthday to Liz. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Orion.
Say, John.
For when Kiwanis calls. Yes, Orion.
Oh no, it was Mike here. I just wanted to mention that we do have a speaker change for next week.
Yeah, thank you.
I had sent out to a couple of people. Jessica Potter from the Historical Society will still be coming, but she'll be coming on the 14th. I had somebody get back to me who teaches at noon on Mondays, but because next week we are meeting on Tuesday, he is available, so he's going to slip in instead, and that is Josh Birkenpass. He's a associate professor of political science up at MSU. He's going to speak about the election of 2016 and populism, as well as the current election. So that information will be coming out in next week's newsletter, but I just wanted to give a heads up to that.
And
But John, can we tell Albert Lee they should come back? Shouldn't we?
Yeah, Albert Lee, come back anytime. Absolutely. You know, Jamil up at MSU knows Josh and says that Josh is great. So he'd be a great speaker and everything. So invite your friends to come join our Kiwanis meeting next week. So we have lots of guests next week. Mike, I want to thank you again for doing a great job lining up really pertinent speakers that really make sense for us to have in these times. So thank you very much. Anything else for the good of the club before we do one Kiwanis call? All right, Orion, it's yours. There you go.
When Kiwanis calls, let everyone stand up. When Kiwanis calls, let each one raise his cup. As we gather round the table, as long as we are able, we'll pledge to thee our loyalty. When Kiwanis calls. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Liz.
Thanks, Orion. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Albert Lee, for joining us. Hope you can join us next week. Everybody have a great week.
Thank you. Have a good one.